And the goal of it is to start early after rehab. So in week 1, when you are doing your quad sets, your straight leg raises, and the athlete understands what the goal of that physical movement is, you can immediately start to implement this framework. So we're going to step through this, but in high control, this is really the cognitive stage of learning. You're just doing the motor task, and there's no real added dual task challenge. Within moderate control, we're going to get into single-step working memory challenges. In control to chaos, this is going to involve 2-step decision making, and so it improves a little bit more of like what you're going to have to do or anticipate in sport. Moderate chaos includes multi-step decision making, and then high chaos is really sort of trying to promote that sensory motor adaptation, environment, and sensory prediction error when resources allow. So on the left, we're going to revisit these same videos of lunging to start. So this is Hawan, and he's going to lunge self-selected pace to a target. In the next phase, moderate control, now Hawan is going to lunge to the target, but he's going to be given the cue or the color that he needs to lunge to through a screen that's behind or that's in front of him. So now he's having to switch his attention from what color is on the screen to visually search where is that color located within my environment. The slides are also randomly paced between 1.25 and 2 seconds. So it adds a little bit of variability to his movement, and he's now not self-selecting the pace at which he's able to lunge. We can continue up the control chaos continuum to phase 3 or control greater than chaos by adding a little bit of variability. So now in this instance, the PowerPoint that he is viewing is gray and it has math on the slides. We chose math because Hawan really liked math. You might have athletes that they don't like math. They don't like to engage in math. And so you might use colors or number like shape sequences here instead. But this was a self-selected task. So if the answer is odd, Hawan is going to do a maximal vertical jump, whereas if the answer is even, he's going to do a forward lunge. What's powerful about this is now I have a measure of physical performance because I can physically view how he's moving on both of these tasks. But I also have a measure of cognitive performance because I can understand how many of these math problems is he getting correct. And if he's getting none correct but has perfect movement, that's something that I need to be able to cue into as a clinician. We can augment this again by now adding color to the slides. So instead of only doing a forward lunge, he's now going to lunge to the color that he sees as he's doing the math. So he's having to do 2-step processes of do the math problem and then decide which exercise he's going to do. And then we add in this inhibition or this orange color, which is just a rest. And then we can get to the last phase, which is considered high chaos. In this phase, your goal is to really create as much sensory integration and external focus of attention as possible to recreate the game environment, starting at a very acute phase of rehab. And so in this case, we're going to have a screen situated in front of Hawan. He's going to be kicking a soccer ball at the same time as he's visually searching for a target that he needs to basically run and touch. You could make this more complicated by adding visual perturbation. But essentially here we have a dual motor task overlaid with a visual cognitive challenge and visual search. You could also do things such as adding environmental distractors or auditory distractors. But the overall goal is to begin to tie these phases with brain activity or anticipated brain activity. So in high control, we're really focused on just the overall movement of the athlete and their general participation. There's no attentional target here. In moderate control, these are divided attention tasks. So I'm going to engage a lot of prefrontal cortex with added cognitive task. In control to chaos, now I might be using divided attention, but I'm also starting to begin to use selective attention. This is also carried into moderate chaos, and then in high chaos, where I'm really starting to try to get at sensory motor adaptation. So key takeaway from the visual cognitive control chaos continuum is that the goal is to use this early in rehabilitation to provide clinicians a framework of structured progression of dual tasks that can be used over the course of recovery. We talked a lot about motor learning stages, and personally, from my clinical experience, I got stuck at putting athletes in, I would say, a phase of motor learning, where I think Dustin touched on earlier, where you get stuck in, you're in the cognitive phase, and then all of your interventions stay within that phase. The goal of this continuum is to provide clinicians flexibility to use several stages of this continuum for dual tasks within a single treatment session. For instance, I might have my athlete that is very good at double limb squatting. And so with double limb squatting, they might be using a moderate chaos intervention. However, we might have just initiated drop jump landing. And so then in that same treatment session, they might be at high control for that intervention. But the overall goal is to provide a framework so that you can not only progress physically, but you can also progress cognitively to enhance motor learning. This provides clinicians a way that you can quantify both cognitive and physical performance, which is something that's missing in both just standard rehab interventions and, as we'll see, in return to play assessments. It then allows you to determine cognitive and physical prioritization. And what we see a lot is that athletes can preserve physical performance due to cognitive engagement. But then once you dual task them, their performance is hindered. And so without doing dual tasks and by waiting until the end stages of rehab, you're not getting a true picture of what that compensation strategy looks like for your athlete until you're at stages of return to play. And then returning back to, you might use multiple phases of this in a single rehab session. And that's the ultimate goal, is acute rehab shouldn't look like all or a high control, and then it's not until 16 weeks where you start using moderate or high chaos interventions. You want to be implementing these as quickly as possible in rehabilitation throughout all phases.